The next generation. This is Tim Tackett. Although Bruce Lee worked with very small groups during his lifetime, this handful of instructors has been successful in training a substantial number of what may be called second generation JKD enthusiasts. According to Dan Inosanto, Tim Tackett is among the most eloquent speakers in the current JKD clan. With a recommendation like that, it became apparent that we would need to seek out Mr. Tackett. And he didn't give off that idea that he was a skilled martial artist, etc. And then Jerry Beasley interviews him. And goes into Dan Inosanto and his camps, seminars, demonstrations. Figure 21. The author with Jeet Kune Do leader Dan Inosanto. The skills of Jeet Kune Do. 5 ways of attack. Dan Inosanto with a student. Hand immobilization attack, HIA, often identified with Bruce Lee's interpretation of physical JKD. In this sequence, Dan traps his opponent's lead, figure 43, and backhands, figure 44, moving and Dan follows with 2 strikes, figures 45 and 46. Grappling. In this series, Larry Hartsell demonstrates skills of grappling with partner Steve Akwajanian. Larry Hartsell must be the tall guy. Looks like a huge football player. Altering styles. That looks like Joe Lewis, maybe. Yeah, it is. With the author, Jerry Beasley. Altering methods. Bruce Lee felt that the stop, hit or way of intercepting a fist was very high order of combat. He thus named his interpretation of the methods of combat JKD, the way of intercepting fist. In this series, Tim Tackett demonstrates the concept. Wing Chun. Francis Fong, a highly regarded Atlanta, Georgia Wing Chun and Kali instructor, demonstrates typical Wing Chun defenses. Francis and Morgan demonstrate the economy of motion associated with Wing Chun as Francis redirects the punch and strikes. Figures 105 to 107. Boxing. Fred Diggerberg is owner and founder of the world famous Diggerberg Academy in Chicago, Illinois, USA. Diggerberg earned his black belt in the 1960s and began incorporating boxing to better his system. Today, the Diggerberg Academy offers classes of martial arts from places such as China, Korea, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia and France. self-defense. Gracie Ella Casillas earned the title of World Karate Championship champion and is the founder of the Anti-Assault System, TAAS. A champion boxer as well, she is one of the greatest female fighters in the world. In this series, she demonstrates to partner Cliff Stewart how she could respond to attacks from the front and from behind. Against the frontal grab, Grace deflects the grab and strikes to the soft tissue of the neck, figure 126. Then follows with a knee to the groin, figures 127 to 128. Against an intended bear hug, Grace strikes low, then high, then quickly spins around to finish the defense. Ninjutsu. Cliff Lindemann of Tacoma, Washington is an associate instructor of JKD Concepts and has teaching credentials in Thai boxing, Taekwondo and Tokakure Ninjutsu. Wow. We did do that for a while in our country. Tokakure. Lindemann was the first individual to integrate the ninjutsu combative and stealth methods with the concepts of JKD. In the following sequences, Cliff combines principles of Kali and Tokakure Ryu to defend against a knife attack. Kali. The Filipino martial art of Kali is a central theme in modern JKD practice. Kali as an art contains techniques for kicking, boxing, trapping, grappling and weapons, making it an excellent vehicle for the interpretation of JKD concepts. Dick Harrell is an associate JKD instructor and is head of the original JKD Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Thai boxing. Modern JKD students focus on Kali and Muay Thai. In this series, Chek Chai, Kaiwe Baidahun and Budai Sawan demonstrate Thai boxing fundamentals. Photos of models courtesy of the Diggerberg Academy, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Savate, la savate. Savate often is identified as the French art of fighting with the shoe or foot. Only recently has the art become popular in the United States, possibly at the time of the printing and publishing of this book, or after. French kickboxing, la savate. Conclusions. In Book 7, Part 7 of Plato's The Republic, Socrates provides an analogy of a cave dweller's recognition of reality that effectively describes Bruce Lee's difficulty in spreading the theory of Jeet Kune Do. In the myth of the cave, Socrates describes captive men who are chained to a wall deep within a darkened cave. The men sit facing a far wall. Their necks are bound such that they can only look in one direction. Behind them, near the entrance to the cave, is a large fire. Also behind him, but in front of the fire, is a raised walkway or platform on which other men transport statues of animals and men made from wood and stone. As the men pass between the fire and the prisoners, shadows of the statues are cast on the far wall, making it appear to the prisoners chained below that the shadows or images are real. The shadows represent their only source of knowledge. Even though the prisoners cannot see each other, they give names to the shadows of images that they see on the wall. As the men who carry the statue speak to one another, the prisoners mistakenly identify the echoing sounds to be sounds made by the reflected images. The talking shadows become the only reality known to the prisoners. As a result, the prisoners develop a chain of command of sorts that honours those prisoners who best describe the shadows or who can more effectively tell one shadow from another. Now let's suppose, say Socrates, that one of the prisoners is suddenly liberated or freed. For one reason or another, he manages to break free from his physical restraints and is able to stand up and look around into the light. Of course, the sudden glare will cause him much pain, and as he looks back to the wall, he is temporarily blinded and is no longer enticed by the security of the shadows. Without seeing the realities of the shadows, his only source of knowledge, he is unable to function and stumbles upward towards the mouth of the cave. As he travels toward the entrance, he is able to see real objects, the statues and the fire, but having known only shadows, he rejects the real images as he tries to find other shadows. Socrates maintains that the newly liberated man must be dragged up to the daylight. Here he is almost blinded, having previously seen only in the darkness. As his eyes begin to adjust to the sunlight, he sees shadows and reflections of real things, and rushes to the shadows. As he becomes more accustomed to the light, he realizes that the shadows are actually only reflections of what is real. For the first time he experiences reality, as he not only sees, but feels a real tree or animal. In time he feels secure in the real world, and has no desire to return to what he recognizes as the fake realities of the shadows in the cave. But what of his friends, the other prisoners in the cave? Because of his new knowledge of reality, he feels compelled to liberate the others in the cave. Although Socrates does not detail any ethical deliberations, one may assume that our liberated man, in recognizing the years of confinement, holds some degree of animosity for his captors. Motivated in part by contempt and in part by a need to free his comrades, the liberated man rushes back into the cave, but after a period in the sunlight, he cannot see in the cave. He is totally helpless and unable to compete with the other prisoners as they pursue highly regarded activities such as shadow telling, devoting a lifetime of study to a specific shadow, teaching others the ways of the shadows, etc. As he boldly attempts to tell the prisoners that the world is only illusional, they condemn him for his long insults. If his world of reality is so great, why is he unable to compete in the accepted games? Has this reality helped him to better recognize the shadows? Has it provided him with insights on teaching the knowledge of the shadows compared to the masters of the shadows? The liberated man is utterly inept. He is laughed at and ridiculed for having made the trip outside. The prisoners attempt to treat him as an example of how seeing the light will cause only confusion and diminish one's ability to recognize the importance of the shadows. Bruce Lee was not unlike our liberated man that the philosopher Socrates spoke of centuries ago. In a sense, Lee too had been a prisoner of predefined and fixed knowledge, based primarily on how someone else viewed combat. In one of his first encounters using the fixed knowledge against a ritual kung fu instructor, Wong Juk Man, he had been described as running about the room trying to catch his fleeting nemesis. When faced with the realities of combat, Lee concluded that a fixed system or style could be effectively controlled by fighting outside of the range of the style. As he discovered liberation from the classical mess, he too felt compelled to free his comrades. And in so doing, Bruce, like Socrates, prisoner in the cave, was ridiculed and ostracized. Had Lee invested less time in reading J. Krishnamurti, that's Jita Krishnamurti, there's another one, another Krishnamurti, but they're not related, they're two different peoples, his philosophical mentor, whose book Freedom from the Known was a source of much inspiration, and more time in reading Plato, perhaps he would have been privy to the plight of his cause. For like Socrates, liberated man, Bruce Lee was often chastised and made an example of how a rebel attitude could cause harm by the various masters of the katas or shadows. It was for this reason that there was much speculation about ill-conceived that Bruce Lee was in fact assassinated When you think about it, it would certainly better serve the purpose of these shadow masters to think that one of their own put an end to the first liberated man. Fortunately, we all have gained much from Bruce Lee's efforts. Bruce Lee stands out as the single most important figure in the development of American martial arts. If we as a country are beginning to be recognised as a world power in martial arts circles, it is in part due to the efforts of Bruce Lee that we have achieved such status. So that, looking at that part of that book, like, we have another channel where we expose organised religions, etc., and we get a lot of ridicule. We do get a lot of ridicule, and people get upset when they're trying to tell us something. Oh, I'm an expert in this. I know this. I know that. This is how it is. That's whatever they're saying to us, right? They get really upset, and they say, "Oh, I'm not talking to you anymore," or "You're this, you're that," right? Make assumptions or this sort of stuff. We believe that looking at this is the same thing, the same problem. Okay, you're liberated. You've come out of that darkness, being controlled, being chained to something, etc., etc. So obviously you're liberated, right? You're thinking for yourself. You're going against the grain. You're rebelling, all this sort of stuff. But these people are like those people still in the shadows. Okay, they can't break free. Even when they break free, right? You liberate them, try to liberate them. They'd rather be chained. You see, they're bound to something. They're bound by something. They're chained to something. Okay. So it's very, very hard for them when they're being given opportunity to be liberated from being bound, being chained. You know, to take that opportunity. They're just stubborn, you know, dogmatic, because they've been programmed that way, basically. Okay, so this is a really good book. We suggest, if you want to know more about Bruce Lee, read it. We'll leave the link underneath this video so you can go and do that. I'm not too sure if you can actually download it, but you don't have to sign up or pay anything to be able to access it. This particular book. Okay. And his final comments by Jerry Beasley. As a professionally trained researcher with a long time interest in Bruce Lee's JKD, the author had for a number of years been disturbed that JKD lacked a coherent and plausible definition. Ask just about anyone the meaning of JKD and they will invariably repeat one of the typical answers, including JKD is a way of the intercepting fist. JKD is Bruce Lee's personal fighting style. JKD means to absorb what is useful. For some reason, these answers always bothered the author. They tell him very little. He hoped that his definition of JKD, which Jeet Kune Do, as a philosophical and physical and social art, is indeed a realistic one, and will become an acceptable way of defining the term. The author can only say that his own JKD experience has affected him most favourably on all three levels. Finally, he would be very pleased if his efforts help you, right, through this book, help you, the reader, more fully appreciate your own JKD experience. JKD just doesn't apply to this martial art, right? It's to everything that you do. Okay? It's honestly expressing yourself. Okay? Not being bound, not being chained to this old way, the old traditions, customs, those classical messes that Bruce Lee was talking about. Okay? So you're liberated, you're free, so you can express yourself honestly without lying to yourself, right? Or acting phony, or doing all these phony moves and that sort of thing. Saying, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, when you're really not. You're blow, you're show, you're blow. Here's about the author, Jerry Beasley. And here's some information on the back jacket. And it reads, experience the power of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. The explosive martial art draws from the best of Eastern and Western fighting styles. Finally, Bruce Lee enthusiasts can see in print a definition of Jeet Kune Do that would have made the late master proud. This exclusive collection features interviews with top masters who work closely with Lee, Dan Inosanto, Larry Hartsell and Joe Lewis, along with a dynamic presentation of principles and techniques and an introduction to the next generation of Jeet Kune Do artists. In search of the ultimate martial art, the Jeet Kune Do experience should shed some light on the Jeet Kune Do concept of martial arts as conceived by the late Bruce Lee. This book is unique, so it is written from the perspective of a trained observer and professional martial arts researcher, and it's from Dan Inosanto. Dr. Beasley's book is extremely interesting and easy to read. It holds your attention. What Bruce Lee was able to do in a physical context, Dr. Beasley has successfully done in print. This book is an enlightening documentation that clarifies what the Jeet Kune Do experience means to the Western mind. Joe Lewis. And it's adapted as the official Jeet Kune Do text by the following organisations. And one of them is IKEA. So we hope that you really enjoyed this book. If you did, then give us a like, subscribe to us, and add your comments, and we will get back to you on those as soon as possible. And you go share this video about this particular book, In Search of the Ultimate Martial Art, The Jeet Kune Do Experience by Jerry Beasley, ed.d. Others may find it very, very interesting and a helpful book to their personal martial arts, the exercise, fitness regimens, etc. As an instructor, as a Bruce Lee fan, and so forth. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, our latest video upload.